Greetings and welcome to another episode of It's My Turn Now, where everybody gets an opportunity to share their thoughts, share their expressions, share their feelings. Today we have a very sensitive topic that we're discussing on today. We're dealing with this being Cancer Awareness Month. We're dealing with cancer. We're dealing with those who have experienced a loss, as well as those who have been entrusted with the privilege of caring for those who have been afflicted with cancer. So we're encouraging you to share with us what your thoughts are, share with us what your feelings are. Let us know what's on your mind. Come on. We do have a link right before this right here. If you're on my Facebook page, there's a link where you can actually come on live and just share your feelings and your expression with us and let us know what your thoughts are on the subject on today for It's My Turn Now. Again, we're thankful for those of you that are joining us, and hopefully something we said to encourage you, to help you, and to be informative. At this time, I'd like to welcome our guests. First of all, we have Miss Shavetta Washington. Welcome to It's My Turn Now.
God bless you. It's my turn now. Hi.
Right. God bless. Also, we have Dr. Wilson. Welcome to It's My Turn Now.
Thank you. God bless you all. And it's my turn now. Hello.
Yes, certainly glad again to have you both on here. And the ladies here are going to share with us some very interesting things about some of their experiences with cancer. Ms. Shavetta, unfortunately, lost her husband due to cancer a few years ago. She'll share more with us about that. And Dr. Williams, she lost her husband recently. It wasn't from cancer, but it was totally different, dealing with a heart attack. And certainly our prayers still go out to the both of them. But she worked in the oncology department for some time. So they're going to share their experience. So Ms. Shavetta, we'll start with you. And you can just tell us a little bit about yourself and some of your experiences.
Okay. As he stated, my name is Shavetta Washington, and my husband passed 2 years ago, May 29th, from cancer. He had a rare aggressive cancer. It was really a complicated cancer, but it was a neuroendocrine cancer. And then he never really had a definitive diagnosis from the colon, but he was diagnosed in April 2018. He had just turned 43, and he really didn't have any symptoms, really just looking back, like subtle symptoms, nothing to think that, it was stage 4 cancer. But anyway, when we found out about it, he had some real bad abdominal pain that took him to the emergency room, and then one test led to another, and then at diagnosis, it was stage 4 terminal metastasized to his liver. And that was at diagnosis. And he was 43 at the time. And God blessed him 13 and a half months on a diagnosis that really could have took him in probably 6 to 8 weeks, based on the cancer that was actually in his liver. And he, went through, chemo treatment, and his treatment journey was a little different from probably a lot of other people, and I just give God the glory for that, because he really didn't have a lot of side effects. The first round of chemo that they gave him, it was kind of like a concoction that the doctor came up with, because they really didn't know how to treat it. It was basically just experimental, kind of just throwing something together and we'll see if it worked, just basically to extend life, because it was no cure. But like I said, God really blessed him and preserved him through that. And then he did 12 treatments. And then we went for a second opinion for a doctor that specialized in the neuroendocrine cancer that was in the liver. And we recommend treating them like your classic colon cancer patient. So they did another chemo regimen, and he did 2 cycles of that. And after that, he was like, he was done. It was just he was done with it. You know, we just trust God. And then ultimately, you know, it was just aggressively going, because the two different treatments that he had, the first one he had the tumor marker went down, which was good, but the cancer in the liver increased. So then when we did the second regimen of chemo, that the tumor markers went down in the liver, but the ones in the colon, it went up. So it was just a twofold situation. So, and then probably the last, probably 3-4 months, they tried immunotherapy, which is a targeted based chemo. And again, it wasn't for the type of cancer that he had. It didn't target any of that. And he did, I want to say 2 treatments of that, or maybe 3, with the result of it knowing that it wasn't working. And then, like I said, he passed May 29th, 2019 from it. So it was quite a journey, but God is what saw him through up until he passed, and God has seen me through up until this point. So.
Okay, thank you for sharing that with us. You know, cancer is devastating anytime you know, you get those diagnoses. It's devastating not only to the person who gets the diagnosis, but it affects their entire family. Everybody is affected by that. And so I think we want our audience to recognize that it affects everyone. And I was looking just at the statistics of how many people have lost their lives due to cancer, and it's astronomical amount of people. We have a few people that want to come on and share. We see you, so just be patient. We're going to bring you on, and we're glad for those who are coming on, because we do want to hear you. Everybody has a story. Everybody has a story of the challenges that they've had to face as either dealing with someone with cancer or experiencing cancer. It's a life-changing event for many. It's something that they never thought they would experience. They never thought they would have to go through that, especially with Shavette, your husband dying at such a young age. And so you know, that's devastating. But we want to talk at this time right here, right before we bring on, we have Carrie and Dora. Before we bring them on, we're going to bring on Dr. Wilson. Dr. Wilson, tell us a little bit about yourself.
Hello. So my name is Dr. Ina Wilson, and my husband passed 6 years ago, not related to cancer, but related to advanced stage heart failure. Our story is a little interesting in that he was actually diagnosed in 2009 with heart failure, but with medication changes, he was actually really quite all the way up until 2015. When he had an acute decompensation. At that point, you know, we went from, you know, just medication alone to being told that he was going to have pretty aggressive life-saving therapy in the form of a pump that's placed outside of the body and threaded into the heart to allow the heart to pump. And, you know, solely temporary therapy, bridge.
Dr. Wilson, you may have to get a little bit closer to the mic because it's kind of cutting in and out. We want to be able to hear everything that you have to say.
Perfect. And that treatment was solely to bridge him over to a heart transplant. Once we got to the point where he was agreeable to a heart transplant, because for about, I want to say at least 6 months, it was going back and forth to his heart failure specialist twice a week. And then going through therapy himself. Was a clinical psychologist, but going through therapy himself to help him understand the severity of his disease. But once he finally decided that he was in agreement with going through with the heart transplant, we underwent the workup, and he was only on the transplant list for 11 days before a heart became available to him. And on that 11th day, we drove down to Nashville, Tennessee. He had the new heart installed and was able to, come off of pretty aggressive therapy within 48 hours and start physical therapy within 72 hours, which was
Okay.
absolutely unheard of following a heart transplant for somebody his age.
Great.
And he, ultimately did really well post-transplant, but unfortunately developed one of the rare complications where the arteries of the heart become blocked with plaque, and you essentially have a heart attack. So he had a massive heart attack and died at home very suddenly and unexpectedly.
Wow.
We had just gone to work out that morning at Orange Theory, which we had done for about the last 4 months prior to him passing. So it was very sudden and unexpected. He had just celebrated his 50th birthday in January and passed away on February 24th of 2020. So the grief associated with that, as you know, is one of those things that's kind of never ending, and it seems to wax and wane. And that's kind of where we are at this point. As far as my experience with cancer and cancer survivorship, I was the cancer survivorship director for about 3 years at University Hospital, where we developed our cancer survivorship program. And that was tailored more towards, making sure that patients understood that, you are a cancer survivor, but there's still surveillance that you have to undergo. And then also incorporating the family into that survivorship journey. Because as you mentioned, once there is a cancer diagnosis, it not only affects the patient, but the entire family and the entire social, support network for that patient.
Okay, very good. We want to hear more from you, but we have Carrie Maddox is on here. Welcome to It's My Turn, Carrie.
Hello. I was not prepared to be on camera, but I do not mind sharing my experience with you guys. So my mom is a breast cancer survivor. We've lived here in Indianapolis for going on 7 years, but she got diagnosed 2 years before we moved here to Indianapolis. She was making the bed one morning, and in the motions of going through making the bed, she leaned over and saw blood coming from her chest, and that's how we found out that she had breast cancer.
Wow.
So she went through 6 months of chemo. She had the mastectomy. She chose not to get the reconstructive surgery done. And so it's every day having her with me is a blessing. Like I'm so thankful for her still being here. My siblings, all of our family, we're just so grateful. The experience was rough for her, just having to see how she dealt with the chemo and how sick it made her and how weak it made her. And she worked all throughout. She would be off maybe 2 days after each treatment, and then she was back at it. It just, just shows just the goodness of God and just how resilient my mom is, and gives me strength to keep going every day. So thank you guys for letting me share that.
And thank you for sharing that with us. Cancer comes in different forms, different ways. It affects some people differently. I've had a number of experiences. My sister, she was having a problem with her chest. Her chest was hurting, so she asked me why I take her to the doctor. And I told her, you need to go to the doctor. That could be your heart. And so I took her to the doctor thinking maybe it was a heart or something simple. Once we got to the doctor took some tests and came out, looked so saturated. He said, hey, tell you, he said, you have cancer spread all over your body. Here we're thinking it could have been just something like, just having a chest problem. And they gave her 3 to 4 months and she lived 6 months. But I think when a person gets a diagnosis of a cancer, some years ago in like 1996, I was diagnosed with cancer myself. And, God can do what he wants to do. And so I got together, some praying people got together and prayed. And we know that God is sovereign. God can heal who he wants to do. He delivered. I went to this is back before we had these cell phones. And I had to answer my voicemail. I'm at work. I can get my voicemail remote, and I get a message from my doctor. My doctor tell me, we need you to come in right away. And I'm thinking, doctor's not going to call you and tell you come. I said, what's wrong? We can't tell you. So then, you're really nervous. And so when I get there, they say, hey, you've been diagnosed with cancer. I was getting a physical because I was going to do a missionary trip to Nigeria, West Africa. And so they had me go to an oncologist, and they said, yes, we do see cancer. We prayed again. They had me come back. We prayed. They said, we don't see anything. But I tell you what that did for me. It caused my whole life to change because I didn't look at life as years and I'm going to do this, I'm going to do this, I'm going to do this. At that time, I realized I in my house, in my living room, I had not sat in my living room in 5 times. I was so busy doing other stuff. So it caused me to focus and appreciate life. And I think anyone who has experienced cancer, has lost someone to cancer or whatever, I think though these are wake-up calls to realize, to let us know our own mortality, because you go on that journey with them and you recognize that that could be you. And so I had a vision 2 years before, and we had never lost anyone in our immediate family. And the Lord had spoke to me and told me that someone was going to die in my immediate family within 2 years, but I didn't know who it was. So I just assumed it was me when I was diagnosed. And my wife said, why aren't you upset? My attitude was, I said, hey, if I'm 100 years old, I probably still ain't gonna be ready to go. So I might as well just take it. So I was thinking, I said, do I want to go on a cruise for 6 months around the world? Because we had a series of people in extended family. And I said, do I want to go on cruise? They gave, because people were dying within 6 months. I said, 3 months go on cruise, and then the last 3 months get as close to God as I can be. We think about all those things. So, and we prayed, but I went back the third time. They said, we don't see anything. And so I went to Africa, and that was life change. But we have Andora. Thank you for waiting, Andora. We're going to bring you on. Andora, now y'all need to show y'all's faces. We want to see who you guys are. Show us y'all's pleasant face. This is the first time this is the first time I think I've had anybody, two people. I've had maybe one. First time I had two people didn't want to show their face. But go ahead. Welcome to It's My Turn, Andora.
Okay, thank you so much. Like Carrie Ann, I wasn't prepared to show my face. I thought I was just going to come on here to support my friend, Dr. Wilson.
Good.
But as far as I'm concerned, my father passed from bladder cancer. He had prostate cancer, survived that, and it moved to his bladder, and he ended up passing from bladder cancer in October of 2019. And although we never, ever, ever want our parents to leave, I'm just so glad that God saw fit for it to happen pre-COVID, because I was able, from the time that my mom got the final word from the doctor, he lived exactly 30 days. So I was able to jump on a plane every Thursday and fly to Alabama to be with him every weekend until he passed. Whereas if it was during COVID, I wouldn't have been able to do that. So I'm just, thankful that I had that time with my dad, was able to give my mom some rest and care and things like that. But it's just a horrible disease just to see, the change in him from week to week. And, I just thank God for the memories that I have with him. I thank God for, the time that I spent with him. He would come up here and stay with me for 1 month at a time, but twice a year. And I'm just thankful for that time. But yeah, the big C word, that's a nasty word, but I'm just, thankful that I was able to spend that time with my dad.
Yeah, so you are extremely blessed, because as a therapist, I deal with a lot of clients that are faced with challenges, and a lot of them do not have the resources. And that's one of the overwhelming things, to have a loved one that's going through a crisis and you don't have the resources to even be able to go to see them, COVID or no COVID. So that, Andora, that was a tremendous blessing as well. And I think it helps us to look at, even at the process of loss, and to see how God allowed us to make it through there. With my sister, right. I was with my sister every day. Every day I went to see her, except one day I had to go out of town to speak. And as soon as I got back the next day before I got home, I went straight to the hospital to see her. And so again, it's life changing. For that time period, every day. I was there to support her and to walk through that process with her. And I felt fortunate that I was able to do that. And so that's a blessing. So Endora, God bless you for your support of your dad.
Thank you so much.
Because a lot of times we hear people, and I'm sure your dad blessed to have you there as well. And that's a blessing to him. It's a blessing for that patient to have someone there with him. And so I guess we're dealing with cancer, but since it's my turn now, everybody gets an opportunity. It's your turn. You talk about what you want to do. So if you want to change, but I think the grief process is a difficult process. Sometimes people ask me, well, why do you talk about certain subjects? Well, I did try to deal with subjects that I think that people need to hear. And one thing too, I think is therapeutic for people to share their loss, because sometimes we don't really share it, we don't express it. And I lost my mom 10 years ago, March the 2nd. Lost my sister. It was 5 years later, after my mom passed, 5 years and 3 days later. So I'm thinking, I'm in the hospital. I'm saying 5 years ago, I was going through the exact same thing. And so, sometimes you don't grieve things till sometimes later. And so I encourage to participate. I encourage those who are going through something. It's okay to grieve. Sometimes it takes a while to grieve. It takes a while. It's not an overnight thing. Because sometimes people say, well, I thought you would be over by now. No, there's no clock, or there's no time limit as when you grieve or how long, because everybody's level of attachment and empathetic view is totally different. And some people, I'm not saying that you love your spouse or your friend or whoever is any less than another person, but there are some people that deal with things totally different. They deal with things totally different. And so because they deal with things different, some people are a lot closer to their family than others. And some people are just more emotional. Some people are more emotional. I'm kind of emotional. When my mom passed, I took it hard. I took it hard. My friends called me a crybaby. I said, well, go ahead. You can call me a crybaby, but I wasn't ashamed with no shame. We were close, when you have a person that you can go to, talk about anything, anytime. I could call my mom 3 o'clock in the morning, or she could call me 3 o'clock in the morning. We just had that ability. I wake up and you think I'd be up, say, well, you wide awake? No, I just wake up and we just start talking. Yeah. And so, we're fortunate for that. I feel fortunate. But Dr. Wilson, tell us a little bit more about what you say you did with oncology.
So I worked in cancer survivorship, and what our goal was for the program was to, get a complete understanding of a cancer diagnosis and kind of how you move from diagnosis to another phase, which is survivorship. And sometimes that survivorship piece for some is, palliative chemotherapy, ultimately to give you a better quality of life prior to the cancer ultimately taking your life. And for others, cancer survivorship is how do you manage your life after a cancer diagnosis? Because, a cancer diagnosis for actually more people than not is not a death sentence anymore. Chemotherapy has definitely changed. Things like immunotherapy, which is more targeted therapy that targets the actual cancer and not the entire body, has definitely led to a lot of patients ultimately having a diagnosis and then going into that survivorship phase and having a long life. So what we focused on was trying to teach patients the importance of doing all of the surveillance testing to monitor for a recurrence of cancer. So if it did come back, we can catch it and treat it early. And then we focused on teaching patients how to deal with a lot of the side effects from cancer treatment. I believe with Carrie Ann's mom, she, decided to get, treatment, but not do the reconstructive surgery piece. But that was one thing that we focused on with survivorship as well. Some of those physical body changes that patients have and how to cope with those. Because when you take a part of your body and remove it, some people aren't able to cope with that as well. So we did a lot of education, and then more so talked a lot about surveillance, meaning how do you monitor for cancer recurrence? And if it does come back, how do we treat it fast and aggressively?
Okay, did you work with Julian Coleman, cancer, breast cancer, that program? Were you connect with them in any way?
Yes, I was. So I worked at the IU Medical Center and the Simon Cancer Center, and I predominantly worked with all solid tumor types. With breast cancer, there was another individual that was over that program, but we all collaborated and worked very closely together.
All right, I think Andorra came back on again. Let me see. But I don't see her face again. We're gonna have to ask you first time. We'll let you get a pass. Second time, you're gonna have to do what we gotta do. So we want to see who you are. Right? Are you back on, Miss Andorra?
Yes, I'm back on. I apologize for that.
And that's no problem. No problem. You come back on third. Next time you come back on, we got to have you see your picture on here. Okay?
Agreed.
Did you have something else that you want to share with us, Andorra?
Oh, no, sir.
Oh, okay, Andorra, just wanted here. All right then. Another unique thing, reason why Dr. Wilson and Shavetta are both on here. Shavetta put an interesting post on her Facebook page. Interesting post. She put an interesting post on her. But before we go there, we have Miss Cecile, which I don't hear from her too often. So we're going to let her know. Now, you could have came on, you could click on link and came on live, but she's another one that doesn't like to come on live either. But she said, it's my turn now. I'm sorry, this may already have been discussed, but what are some of the things that can be done as prevention? Very good question. Thank you for sharing. She always has a good question. Now, here's the thing about it. Interesting thing about once you've been diagnosed with cancer, or once a loved one or a friend has been diagnosed with cancer, you'd be surprised how educated you become. Yeah. And so why I'm asking Dr. Wilson's question, I'm certain that Shavetta can answer as well, because you'd be surprised, your whole vocabulary and everything just changes. Yeah. So I tell you what, I'm gonna let Shavetta talk about it, and then we'll let Dr. Wilson. Shavetta, what from your experience?
Well, from my experience, as far as preventative, because with the type of cancer that my husband had, like I said, he never really had a definitive colon cancer diagnosis, but that's what kickstarted all of the testing, because they gave him a colonoscopy. At that time, just 3 years ago, the colonoscopy screening was age 50. He had just turned 43. I do know they just changed it to 45, but again, he was 43 at the time that he was diagnosed. And if you like Chadwick Boseman, he had colon cancer. He was 41, 42 when he passed. So far as preventative in my situation, I mean, he wasn't at the age for screening for far as for colon cancer. So that's really kind of my experience with that. It was just, unfortunately, at time of diagnosis, it was just already metastasized and stage 4 at the time. Now, leading up to the diagnosis, he had some subtle signs, but looking back, those symptoms he had, I mean, we never would have thought that it was stage 4 cancer, he had a little bit of weight loss, maybe towards like the end of 2017, but he's a health fanatic. So, he would be up and down with different diets and so forth and so on. So when he was losing weight, we just contributed to that. After he was diagnosed, we're looking back over the years prior to that, and it still really wasn't an indication of anything that would have triggered to be like, oh, he's walking around with stage 4 terminal cancer, basically. So, yeah.
I just talked to someone who had been diagnosed with prostate cancer. And one of the things they told me, they said, I wish I had followed through. The doctor told me his PSA levels were very high. and they wanted to run more tests, and he for some reason refused to run the test. And by the time he starts developing the major symptoms, it was almost too late. Then, is cancer, the chemo or radiations are only options that he has. And so I think one thing, I have a friend of mine who's a doctor. He told me, he said, listen, he said, you have to take control of your own health. I remember I was living in Evansville, Indiana at the time, and my doctor, I was about 42 years old. He said, have you had your colonoscopy done yet? I said, no, I haven't had it. I said, no. He said, well, you need to go schedule one. So I went to my doctor. I said, hey, I need a colonoscopy done. He said, you too young. He said, you only 42. He said, you don't need that. He said, you don't need to do it to like 50. Well, so I tried to encourage him to say, but he was opposed to me doing it. So I didn't. So I was talking to my doctor about a year later. I was talking to my friend, because we talk on a regular basis a few times a year. And he said, by the way, did you ever, how did your colonoscopy turn out? I said, I didn't get it. I said, what? He said, you better get that colonoscopy. He said, you take control. And so we have to realize certain minorities have higher risk of certain things. And so I insisted that I get the colonoscopy. I said, hey, he said, well, I don't think you need it, but how some doctors can be arrogant. He said, I don't think you need it. I said, well, thank you very much, sir. It's very nice, but you don't want to make the doctor mad. I said, well, thank you very much, sir. So we went ahead and got the colonoscopy, and I had 8 polyps.
Wow.
Not 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, but 8 polyps. Had I waited until I was 50, it'd have been too late.
Exactly. And I just want to interject this too, because after my husband passed, when I went to the doctor, because I had just turned 45, and my doctor had sent me to, because I told her, but I didn't have any issues or anything, so she did refer me to a gastro doctor, but they called, and again, insurance wouldn't cover it. They was like, if you're not having any issues, we can't do it. We can't justify it from an insurance perspective. So I couldn't get it done because of that. But now, it just literally just changed to 45. So now I can, go and get one this year. But I did try, and it's just no, insurance only covers it at age 50 if you're not having any issues. So
that's a whole new subject right there, talking about insurance, because insurance, they're concerned about that bottom line, that bottom dollar, man. They don't care.
Yeah,
they are going to hold as much back from you as they can and get you off their insurance roll if they can, because they see that they're going to have to spend more money. They're going to be costly. They don't mind when you're paying the premium as long as they want. That's why they stay in touch with you, because they want to make sure you're as healthy as you can be, because once they see that you are going to be costly to them, that's when they monitor you and they will find a reason to get you. But before I turn to Dr. Wilson, I think it's important, and I'm sure she's going to say this right here, get your proper screenings. Most men do not like to go to the doctor. And I was like that. I did not want to go to the doctor. My wife used to get on me all the time about going to the doctor. You need to go to the doctor. I'm telling men, listen to your wives. Wives are there for a reason. If you got a wife, a good wife, consider yourself blessed. If you got a wife that's concerned about your health, consider that a blessing, because it could have wives say, hey, don't worry about going to the doctor. So if you got one that's concerned enough, I remember some years ago, I was having a problem with my eyes. And I told my wife, I said, hey, I'm seeing spots in my eyes. She said, you need to go to the doctor. She just said, you need to go to the doctor. And so I said, okay, I'm going to go. A couple of days later, guess what? I started seeing a shadow. And my wife, I guess, to me, it didn't sound like she was too compassionate. I told you to go to the doctor. You know how wise. I told you to go, just like that. I said, I'm going to go. And next, a couple of days later, it was like slice out of pie. I was saying, next day I went totally blind out of the eye. Then I went to the doctor. And so the doctor said, I cannot guarantee that you'll be able to get your sight back, but you still have to have the surgery or the shape of your eye will completely change. And the doctor told me, he said, now, when your wife was telling you to go to the doctor, your retina was starting to detach. She said, had you gone when she first told you to go, then your retina would not have completely detached, and the surgery would not have been intensive. So I learned to listen to her from that day. I said, maybe I'll listen to you. But go ahead, Dr. Wilson, your turn.
So just to kind of reiterate what you've already mentioned, it's gravely important that we, one, go see our doctors at least annually, because there is a whole litany of screening or cancer screening tests that we should do at various points in our lives. And those screening tests start as young as, once you enter puberty, for diagnosis such as breast cancer or testicular cancer for men and women. There's a version of that women can be affected by, as well as breast cancer. Men can be affected by breast cancer. So it's gravely important that we're seeing our doctors at least annually, and then following through with their screening recommendations that are out there. Unfortunately, if you're only seeing your doctor when something's wrong, then by the time you get a diagnosis, sometimes it's too late. So those proper screenings at various intervals, based on the American Cancer Society guidelines, are truly important. For African Americans and minorities in general, when we receive a cancer diagnosis of any sort, generally our outcomes can be poor, for various reasons. It's not just because, of our genetic makeup, but sometimes it's because of poor access to care. So getting those recommended screenings on the regular intervals will definitely help to catch a cancer early and therefore begin treatment for it early, because we are diagnosed with more aggressive forms of cancer. So if you catch it early, treat it early, outcomes can potentially be better.
Very good. You have to excuse me. For some reason, my phone's ringing. People are texting me on my phone, and please forgive me. Okay,
Yes.
go ahead.
And I just want to interject too. My husband, he did go to the doctor. That wasn't an issue or anything with him. He did his annual screenings and everything like that. So that really wasn't an issue. But now that he's passed, so like with my children, because he was 43 at the time that he was diagnosed, so they will start getting screenings when they're 33, because it's 10 years from when the parent is diagnosed. So when they turn 33, they'll have to start getting colonoscopies, certain screenings, when they turn 33.
Okay, very good. Another thing I would say too, again, still that's a very good question. I think I've learned that if you have some symptoms, don't wait till the symptoms get worse. But the problem is that some people do not have the insurance. They don't have the insurance to go follow up. That's a lot of these tests are very expensive. And when you don't have adequate insurance or you have a limited budget, then it's hard to get the proper treatment. So maybe Dr. Wilson, do you know, are there facilities out there that will help to defer the expenses to someone who doesn't have the money?
Well, as far as access to care, there are a lot of programs out there that will help, patients to gain at least adequate insurance where they can undergo their screening tests. But, it's one of those things where, you kind of spoke about it before. You have to be an advocate for yourself. And you have to truly be involved in your care. So there's a litany of programs out there, but the caveat to that is getting access to those programs, asking the right questions, going to the right facilities in order to get access to care. And sometimes that access to care piece, there's so many barriers that can happen. And what we've seen a lot is, those barriers include things like, transportation and just lack of education. So those are things that as a community we can overcome, but we have to be willing to do the work in order to overcome those barriers. Sometimes it takes several appointments and people can't call off work several times, to overcome some of those barriers. But are there programs out there? Absolutely. Absolutely.
Okay, so how would they find about those programs?
So, the first thing is, one, when you see your doctor, I would definitely talk with someone in the office. Usually the person that's at the front desk can give you a lot more information. And once you speak with your doctor, gaining other information as far as access is speaking with a care coordinator or a social worker that's connected to your doctor or your healthcare provider. Social workers and care coordinators are, one of the best resources to gain more information about programs that are out there that can give you access to adequate health care. But I think that's the thing. We have to be willing to ask the question. And sometimes we're not as willing to, ask some of those questions that makes us more vulnerable. But definitely there are programs out there.
Also too, I just found this out recently. I think GoodRx, even when it comes to medications and prescriptions, I mean, you can save yourself a ton of money. I was looking at one prescription that was like $50-something. You can get it for the same thing for like $8. It just depends on the prescription. So that lets us know the markup. So when we deal with cancer, and I do want to deal with the episode because there are a lot of success stories when people have overcome cancer, and because this is Cancer Survival Month, we do want to address some people who have survived it. But there are a lot of resources out there. We just need to know who to go through. American Cancer Society, I would encourage someone to go to there. But the challenge is when you are faced with something and it can overwhelm you. And I'm sure, Shavetta, it was overwhelming for you. And if you look at Shavetta's husband, on Facebook page, he was a strong, healthy guy. I mean, you would not have expected that, and I think scripture said time and chance happen to all men. So we really don't know. We don't know. Sometimes it's our what we eat that contributes to it, but we don't know. Sometimes people say it's thing in location, wiring, electric poles. There's so many things that contribute to cancer that's beyond our control. Only God knows about that. And the thing about it is that we understand when you have faith in a higher power that God knows best. And he's able to give you the strength to deal with it. And many times a person who is going through it. And I think one of the important things is to be there for that person, to be there and to be supportive. I wrote a book and I'm going to let Shavetta talk about her book. I wrote a book some time ago called The Empty Quiver. I deal with some loss, and I talk about how to address people when they experience a loss. And that's very important. It can be just as devastating, the response that people have to your loss. And I'm trying to figure a way how to say this. People can be very
crass.
Crass.
So you put it better than I would. So I'm trying to be nice.
Give you a whole list of
yes.
A lot of words.
A lot.
People say. I mean, people will say. I mean, you. And the thing about it is, the things that people say, it's just unbelievable, and that doesn't help. It doesn't. I want to encourage those who are watching this. Please feel free to share. I was having problems getting to go on public. Sometimes you see me looking back between people call me, people texting me, and then my Facebook page. Sometimes I have a hard time. If I finally was able to get to go public, because sometimes people tell me I tried to get on there, I couldn't get on because I don't know why. Sometimes it's public and sometimes it doesn't, but it did finally go public. So please share this with this because I think this is good information that if someone else comes on. I have people who will come on, post a month later and say, you know what, I'm just now reading this post right here. It really helped me. So I'm sure that there are a number of people that are watching or share it. And so feel free to share it. Feel free to give a comment. If you don't want to be seen, you can leave a comment in the message box. But thank you. Endora is still here. Did you have anything else that you want to share with Ms. Endora?
No, sir. I'm just listening.
Okay. All right. Now, also, you can see it on the Facebook page. Are you able to go on the Facebook page?
No, I'm not on Facebook. I received a link from Dr. Wilson, so I came on through the link.
All right. Well, that's another stuff. A lot of people don't like to be on Facebook. Facebook can be a very good medium, Endora. So I'm not promoting Facebook because I'm not getting paid. So that's all I'm going to say. But it helps you get in touch. But if I do any more promoting, I'm gonna have to tell Facebook to give me a paycheck.
That's right. That's right.
So I'm not gonna do no more promoting but one thing that I guess I'm a little bit older. So when you get a little older, you go from subject to subject. That's why it's called It's My Turn Now. So it's kind of like it's my turn, but while I'm thinking about that, so I'm not going to give them. I have a hard time buying a lot of name brand stuff like Nike, things like that, especially like while I was in college buying the college sweatshirts, because I said I'm paying you to advertise and market your school. I said you
they
need to pay
giving
me.
It to you for free, right?
Exactly. I said I'm paying tuition. You need to pay me. Why should I market you? And and I don't get nothing back from it. So I refuse to buy any of my college jerseys. So if you see me with one, either somebody bought it for me or they gave it to me. But I still would like to get a few of them. I really would like to get a few, but I just figured, man, and they're so high. But that's for another. Excuse me, I'm just kind of.
One thing that I do want to kind of bring up, and it's something that Shavetta and I talk about a lot, is the grieving process and how individuals think that right after a loved one passes is when you really need the support. And I've seen more that I still have a great support system. I don't want to minimize the fact that I have an amazing support system. Mm-hmm. However, after my husband passed, I had an abundance of support from people that I didn't really know, people that I had met in passing, people where our kids had played football together when they were 6 or 7. But gradually over time, that support starts to wane down. Mm-hmm. And then that's when I find that you really need the most support, because you've had a lot of time to process the loss, and you've had a lot of time to start to miss that loved one. Right. Shortly after they pass, those memories are so fresh and they're right there. But as time goes on, some of those memories start to fade, and you really can sit in that grief and that missing of that individual. And that's when, I think you need more support, is kind of as time goes on. Not as much you need it right after the passing, but I find that grief over the long haul is when you definitely need a lot of support as well.
I agree. And I think it tends to, because I just hit 2 years, and it seems to trail off after that first year. People seem to think that, it's been a year, you've been through the first, and, I've been through the first, but for me, going into the second was harder, just because that person, my husband has been gone that much longer. And then with me and even Ina, we have children that just graduated from high school. So we been through a whole senior year without our spouse, and just dealing with all of those pivotal moments that he would have been here for. It enhanced it even more, right. It's just because it's just like it's a big missing piece during that senior year, and just kind of sometimes people don't know what to say, and I just think it's probably best not to just say anything versus just, because people say, oh, well, he's with you in spirit, and, okay, but I would rather have him here, mm-hmm. But, that doesn't really help me when you say, oh, he's here in spirit,
Right.
Because I would have preferred for him to be sitting right next to me at my daughter's graduation. So, and again, I just hit 2 years, and you kind of hit it, Bishop Walton, that everybody is different, everybody is different. And I think it kind of piggybacks on the relationship you have with that individual. And I'm just speaking from a spouse perspective. Me and my husband were very, 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 very close. We were together since I was 16 years old. He was 15. So I was with him more than half my life at the time that he passed. We were together 28 and a half years. And I've had this conversation or in an interview, there's a difference between being in love and loving your spouse. There is a difference. And me and my husband was still deeply in love with each other at the time that he passed. So for me, again, there's no time limit on it. You know, that was my husband. That was the closest thing to me. And a spouse is part of you. So when that spouse departs, a part of you is gone. You know, and you know, but it's just a lot of things that people say or questions you get, you know, and I think too, me and Ina could relate, you know, just because of our age, you know, oh, are you dating? Are you going to get remarried? You know, just all these type of questions that come up. And it's like, man, my husband just died. You know, it's just, you know, I think people just don't know what to say.
You know, the script says time and season for everything. The problem is some people don't know when the time and season, and you just have to be sensitive, because there, you know, even though there's times you want people to talk, but sometimes you don't like talking to anybody. That's part of the grief process too. And so if somebody approaches you during the season when you don't feel like talking, then they don't realize that maybe there was, for that moment, they just back up all together, and then you're offended because they backed up all together. So I talk about that in my book. You know, you want to say, well, what's wrong with you? How come? You know, you're supposed to be my friend. You're supposed to be understanding, and some people don't know how to gauge that. And so you say it's been 2 years, man. Some people, you know, hey, they don't care. It could be 2 months, 2 weeks. You know, people. I'm going to say insensitive, but some people don't realize what they're saying. And some people don't realize what they're saying, and some folks don't care what they're saying.
Yes.
Yeah.
And I've truly learned how to gently redirect people. You know, if it's a discussion that I'm not willing to have, and I'll simply just say, I don't think that's a discussion that I'm willing to have with you right now, because you don't want to push people away. So I always end it with, you know, right now, you know, maybe at another time, but now isn't the time. And I've really become very comfortable with, you know, kind of redirecting conversation, because, you know, previously I would just kind of, you know, listen to what people had to say and maybe laugh about it and kind of just move on. But I have truly learned how to, one, guard my own heart and my own feelings, because I have to live the rest of my life without my spouse. And that doesn't mean that, you know, you don't move forward with life, but that whole moving on piece, you never really get to move on, but you absolutely have to move forward. Because that's just the nature of life. You know, definitely part of you may die with your loved one, but the everyday life still has to go on.
Okay. One of the things that you two share in common that I thought was very interesting, I guess you're kind of a sisterhood, had a unique, unfortunately, cancer, people who are in cancer, survivals, Alzheimer's, whatever, you join a unique group whether you want to or not. You two are in a unique group that you both were 44 years of age when you lost your spouses.
Yes.
Then you also have kids that are just graduating from high school.
Yeah.
So those are moments in your life, life-changing moments, and those are times that are probably a little more sensitive to, because you're wishing, you know, my spouse to be there to see, you know, so he can celebrate in that next move of life with your child.
Right. And not even just that, you know, it's some of those little small things. You know, I can change a light bulb. I could probably change a tire if I absolutely had to, but I don't want to, you know, it's just those kind of things, you know, and definitely when something goes wrong, it's like, how am I supposed to go about getting this fixed? You know, when you've had a spouse, especially a husband that, you know, took care of all those things, or even just trying to plan your life, you know, we had very set plans, you know, and Dora can definitely speak to this. You know, James and I, we actively prepared to be empty nesters. So we started doing a lot of things together. I started to get interested in some of the things that he was interested in as an individual. He started to get interested in some of the things that I was interested in as an individual, because we were preparing to be empty nesters. We definitely were very much in love, but we, you know, my husband was a clinical psychologist. So we had frank conversations about, you know, things that happen as you become an empty nester. So we actively did things to prepare for that. And all of those plans that we made, now I'm left to figure out, okay, what do I do next as an
Mhm.
individual? Because what I would have done as a couple is very different.
Right.
You know, now I don't want to be so far away from my family, but initially we had planned to relocate to Sedona, Arizona, and we had, you know, an area picked out where we were going to live. But now that just doesn't make sense for me as an individual, because I need to be close to my kids that are both here in Indiana. So that just kind of reprocessing, refocusing your life and replanning the rest of your life has definitely been one of those things that I didn't actively appreciate, you know, after he passed.
Yeah. So one thing I can say about you, Dr. Wilson, you do have a good friend, Endora. She's
do.
like she's hanging in there, hanging pretty tough with you.
Oh yeah, Endora and Carrie Ann. That's what I mean. I have a great support, and Shavetta. You know, Shavetta. Poor Shavetta. I'll call and I'm like bawling in tears, and she's like, "It's okay, it's okay." Just so you know.
Yeah, and I mean, and from my post, I mean, we're both from Gary, and then, like I said, but we reconnected after her husband passed, and like I said, it's just an instant connection, just by way of what we're going through, and it's just like wow. But just even in just my 2 years, I mean, I have ran across so many widows that are young. I mean, it's unfortunate that, I mean, that are young. And like Ina was saying, you know, me and my husband was looking forward to being an empty nester, you know. Both of my kids were planned. Both of our kids was planned. So we was like, we're going to have these kids, you know, by the time we 46, 47, they're going to be gone. You know, it's just going to be us. And, you know, and then you get hit with a terminal diagnosis. So it's just like, wow, you know, I'm really going to be an empty nester by myself. But God knew what was to come, you know. So, and one thing I take comfort in knowing is, one, I know where my husband is at, but two, it was his time. It was his time. So it's just like, it was his time, 44 years of life. It was his time. So God has another plan and another purpose for my life that I'm going to, you know, walk in, you know, and get my daughter graduated and on her way, and then just really zone in the purpose that he has for me, which I don't know if you want me to lead into the book that I wrote. But basically,
I'm going to say this right before you go in the book, because I do want you to read the book. But I was going to say, you ladies are so nice. Y'all about to make me change my view of folks from Gary.
What?
Y'all both so nice. I'm about ready to change my view of people from Gary.
Dr. Walton, this is the second time I have heard this week, and it's only Monday. It's only Monday.
Okay. I'm sure. You sure y'all weren't from something else and you moved to Gary and then came here?
No, born and raised. And I've been in Indianapolis, wow, almost 25 years. Almost 25 years. So, but more than half my life actually. But yeah, there's some good people from Gary. You know,
amazing.
I was just kidding. I know a lot of good people from Gary. I know a lot of people.
I know. You know, some people just don't know how to handle us. That's all.
That's right.
Exactly.
We're very real and authentic.
I say most people come from Gary tough because they had to be tough.
Yeah.
You wouldn't make it if you weren't a pushover. So most women are can stand alone. They can handle it on. But one of the things, two things, Shavetta, you share with me is that I guess you have, I don't know if you have a grief support group for widow women, and tell us a little bit about your book.
Okay. Yeah, it's not really so much a grief support group, but I wrote a book called A Widow I Became. Let me put it in the camera. But a widow I became due to the cruelty of cancer, because cancer is very cruel, but victorious in Jesus. So basically, it's a book telling about my testimony and my husband's testimony, just our journey through the process of what I went through. So when the book came out, because this was nothing I ever wanted to do is write a book, but I just felt I needed to get it out, and writing the book was very therapeutic for me. And like I said, I don't have an issue talking about it or anything like that. And then when it came out, it was just like, wow, it kind of kickstarted my healing. So in the midst of the book coming out, and me losing my husband, he has positioned so many widows. Like I said, I've run across so many widows that he's placed in my path. And I know that he's birthing in me a widow's ministry. I mean, I kind of knew that pretty quickly after my husband passed. So I've recently, just within the last couple of months, created it's a private group, a widows connection group, just for us to encourage one another, just, you know, shared, you know, scriptures. Just it's a Christian based widows group, and just to, you know, encourage one another. And unfortunately, it's really sad that the widowhood is definitely expanding. I think we're up to like 20 widows just within the last couple months. I had one recently, her husband literally just passed last week, and she's 38 years old with 5 kids. So it's definitely something that God is shifting me to, far as dealing with widows in the ministry. I'm not just really sure exactly how it's going to be or what it looks like, but I know that's my purpose.
Okay. Now, I was just reading somewhere this week where I guess when it comes to deaths, especially cancer, I think like 800,000 or something men die to 100,000 women. So it's a big disparity. It's a big disparity, and that's with a lot of sicknesses. But what God would do is God will equip you for something, and He will birth something out of you. I'm going to encourage you to write in the message on this Facebook page. Write the name of your book and write how a person can get your book if they want. You know, if a person wants your book, write in the message. There may be someone who wants to get your purchase your book.
Okay.
So. You ladies have been awesome. I appreciate you guys sharing your testimony, such powerful testimonies. I'm sure there are a number of people that will watch this right here. Some will watch it now, some will watch it later on. And I'm sure they'll be encouraged, be inspired, and gather strength by watching the strength that you ladies are possessing. You're showing a tremendous amount of strength. And I know it can be emotional, even describing it, and I can kind of see that. That's because I deal with therapy and I watch people's emotion, and you guys, I can see different times that when you were talking, a thought or an idea will come to you, and it'll pull at your heartstring. But my prayers that God will continue to strengthen you ladies, encourage you, and continue to bless you in your future endeavors. And I'm going to give you both have a final comment that you want to share with us before we leave the program.
I'll just share, just kind of to piggyback off of something that Shavetta said, is that, the widowhood is very different at various points in your life. And, Shavetta's group is open to all widows. However, it's definitely been helpful to me to see other young widows, because young widows have a different set of, issues that they have to face as a young widow versus being someone that has, lived into their 80s and 90s with their spouse, and then they lose their spouse. Things just kind of like, managing your finances, making sure that you're applying for, Social Security for your children, those kind of things. And those are things that, Shavetta definitely helped me with. So I would just encourage, anyone that unfortunately has to face becoming a widow, is to, look at your resources and definitely try to get support from other individuals that have gone through that same journey.
Okay, very good. Very good. Thank you, Dr. Wilson. Shavetta, last words.
And I just wanted to thank you for the opportunity and how this just came about, and just, encourage anyone that's probably just even going through a cancer diagnosis or has lost a loved one. Just with my own experience and the reason why I can sit here and talk to you is because of God. I mean, you got to draw nigh to Him, because really He's the only one that's going to see you through this magnitude of a loss. a spouse that's a very, very, very big loss. And that's not to negate any other losses, but I'm just speaking from my own experience, because when you become one in marriage, you're one, and you forsake all. So you got to have a relationship with God, because he's the only one that's going to see you through. And that's just, this pain that I've been through is definitely for a purpose. But if it was not for God, I would be in a bad state. And I just thank God for just the strength that he's given me to just carry on. I mean, because life does carry on. And I look to him, and that's how I've been sustained these past two years.
Okay, I've learned too, with different situations, sometimes people look at you and I know they want to say, but I like what you said, because sometimes, you don't feel strong, but you recognize that God holds you up and God sustains you and God keeps you, even is not of your own strength, but it's of the strength of God that he strengthens you. So I want to encourage you ladies to keep on moving forward, and pray God will continue to bless you, that he'll bless the family. I'm sure you've been a blessing to those who are on here. We thank those who responded to the comments on here. Please share this with your friends and your neighbors. Don't forget, Chevette wants you to write in the comment, write about your group. If someone tell me how they can join the group. Matter of fact, just tell us now, because some people don't have Facebook, and so we want you to tell them how they can come here. I'm not trying to throw shade on nobody, Endure. I ain't trying. I just have a thing. I'm trying to be considerate.
Right,
I have Facebook. I'm just not watching on Facebook.
Okay. All right.
Okay. But
now listen. And Dora must be from Gary, because she got me straight real quick.
No, she's not even from Gary.
Las Vegas. Oh, that's a different story.
That's funny.
Okay,
but you can purchase the book. Normally you can get it directly from me, but right now I actually don't have any. I was trying to put in an order today, but you can get it on Amazon. And the name of the book is A Widow I Became. That's the main title, A Widow I Became. And then my name is Chevette Washington. And you can get it on Amazon, Barnes and Nobles. I think it's a couple of other ones, but those are the main ones that people are familiar with. And from my understanding, when you get it on Amazon, people are getting the book fairly quickly. So that's how you can get my book. And then if you know any widows that are on Facebook, you can send them my information, and then I can provide them the link with the Widows Connection group, because it is a private group for widows only. So
okay, all right then. Okay, I put the name of the book on there, Widow I Became. Can they find it if they type in Widow I Became on Amazon? Okay. Also, again, now my book is called The Empty Quiver: Journey from the Loss of Pain, Despair to Hope, Recovery, and Victory. Widow I Became by Chevette Washington. Look, Sister Steele, she's sharp. She's on it. She's on it. So she's got the book. She says she says her husband's Gary, but she's not from Gary. But she's tough enough that she could be from Gary. She's tough enough she could be from Gary. All right. Well, we thank each and everyone for your participation. Join us. Don't let this be your last time. Ms. Andora, don't let this be your last time. Each week we have a different subject, different topic that we have a number of different topics that we're going to talk about. And so we want you to feel free to be a part. If you have an idea, if anyone has an idea or suggestion, something that they'd like to see or to discuss or talk about, please let us know. You can inbox me or just let me know that you like to discuss that subject. Listen, God bless you. Remember, when you on this program, everybody gets a turn.
Yes.
It's my turn now. God bless you. We love you.
Thank you.
God bless you. Thank you so much.
Thank you.